All right, let's talk about it. Next.js versus Node.js. This is the question, right? It trips up so many developers, new and experienced. Well, today we're going to clear all that up. We're going to settle this thing once and for all and figure out exactly what's what. Let's dive in.
I'm willing to bet you've asked yourself this exact question. I mean, I see it plastered all over Reddit, Twitter, Stack Overflow, everywhere. And it feels like a huge deal, right? Like this one choice could totally shape your career or make or break your next big project.
But here's the thing. What if I told you that whole question is just wrong? Seriously, the entire premise is built on a misunderstanding. Asking which one should I learn means you're already kind of looking at it the wrong way.
Okay, so here's the big reveal. The most important thing to get right now. Next.js and Node.js are not competitors. They aren't in a boxing ring fighting for the same title. They're teammates. They're collaborators, designed from the ground up to work together.
And here's the absolute best way to picture this in your head. Think of Node.js as the electricity in your house. It's the raw power, the foundational grid that makes everything else possible. And Next.js, that's an appliance, like a super high-tech smart fridge. It plugs into the electricity to do a very specific, very cool job. You'd never stand there and ask, should I get electricity or a fridge? It's a silly question. You need the electricity to make the fridge work. See where I'm going with this?
Okay, so let's stick with that analogy. Let's start with the foundation, with the power source. What is Node.js really? What is this electricity we're talking about? So at its heart, Node.js is what we call a runtime environment. You got to remember, for the longest time, JavaScript was basically stuck in a cage. It could only live inside a web browser. Then Node.js came along, built on Google's crazy fast V8 engine, and it blew the doors off the cage. Suddenly, you could run JavaScript anywhere, especially on a server.
And that's where it really flexes its muscles, on the back end. This is the heavy lifter. We're talking about the engine behind powerful APIs, rock-solid authentication servers, payment systems that handle tons of transactions, and those real-time apps like live chats or online games. Basically, if you're building the serious data crunch and guts of an application, you are deep in Node.js land. But working with Node is a classic trade-off, you know? It's like being handed the keys to a Formula One car. You get all this raw power, total control, to build literally anything you can imagine from scratch. But you're also responsible for everything. The setup, the architecture, every little piece of security. It's an absolute beast, but it demands a lot from you.
Okay, so we've got our electricity. Now let's plug in that fancy appliance. Let's talk about Next.js. What is this thing? And more importantly, what problems does it actually solve? So first things first, Next.js is a framework that sits on top of React, the super popular front-end library. And here's the crucial part, the bit that connects everything. It's built on top of Node.js. It literally uses Node as its foundation, that electricity we talked about, to fix a bunch of common and honestly super annoying problems that front-end devs pull their hair out over.
So what kind of problems are we talking about? Well, the big one is SEO, search engine optimization. Classic React apps can be kind of like ghosts to Google. They're hard to read, and that tanks your search ranking. Next.js, it totally fixes that. It also makes things like page routing a piece of cake and cranks up your app's performance to 11 with these amazing features like server-side rendering, or SSR, and static site generation, SSG. It's basically a toolkit that says, hey, front-end dev, I know what your biggest headaches are, and I'm here to fix them.
So if you just need one super simple takeaway to lock this in your brain, think of it like this. Node.js is backend first. It's the 90% of the iceberg that's underwater. The database connections, the server logic, all the heavy stuff. Next.js, on the other hand, is front-end first. It's all about that 10% of the iceberg you can see, what the user interacts with, how fast the pages load, the whole user experience.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But what does this actually look like when you're building a real app? Let's check out a couple of common ways these are set up. So in a more traditional setup, you've got two separate worlds. Over here is your client, your front end, maybe it's a standard React app or a mobile app. And it talks across the internet to a totally separate backend server, a dedicated API server built with Node.js. That Node server is the one that talks to the database. Everything is neatly divided into its own box.
Now, a Next.js setup, that looks totally different. It's all integrated all under one roof.
The Next.js app itself is smart enough to handle both the pretty user interface and the backend API stuff that needs to talk to the database. So the user just interacts with this one single unified system. It's a much more blended approach.
So you're probably wondering, okay, which one is better? And the answer is, it depends. It's all about trade-offs. As you can see right here, that separate Node.js architecture, that's perfect for massive enterprise-level systems that need to scale like crazy. But the integrated Next.js approach, that's a dream for startups and anyone who needs to build and ship things fast, especially when the user interface and SEO are top priorities.
And seriously, let's pause on that SEO point for a second. Don't blow past this. For so many businesses, we're talking blogs, e-commerce sites, you name it. If you're not visible on Google, you basically don't exist. In that specific fight for eyeballs, Next.js isn't just a little better. It has a massive, built-in, unfair advantage. It's a total game changer, for real.
Okay, enough about theory. Let's bring this back to you. What does all this mean for your career? For what you should actually spend your precious time learning?
All right, here's a super clear, no-nonsense roadmap for you. First, and you cannot skip this step, you have to master JavaScript. It's the foundation of everything. Got it? Good. Step 2, if you're doing modern web dev, you gotta learn React. Now, once you have those two down, you get to a fork in the road. You have to choose your focus. Do you get excited about databases, logic, and building powerful APIs? Awesome, go deep on Node.js. Or do you love crafting beautiful, snappy user interfaces that people love to use? Perfect. Then your next step is Next.js. But here comes the reality check. In the real world, on the job, it's very rarely a simple either-or situation. Most modern companies, they use both. It's super common to see a company with a beautiful marketing website built in Next.js for that amazing performance and SEO, and that website talks to a bunch of separate, powerful microservices built with Node.js that are doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes.
And that right there brings us to the final and honestly, the most important takeaway of this entire explainer.
So please, if you remember one thing, remember this. Next.js versus Node.js was never a real fight. It's not a competition, it's a team. It's a partnership. Next.js is the specialized player that relies on the raw power of its teammate Node.js. They're both critical tools for building modern apps, and they work best together. So you see, the question was never Next.js or Node.js. The real question you should be asking yourself is, which tool solves the problem I have right now? So now that you get it, now that the confusion is gone, what are you going to go build?